Imagine being handed the most important high-stakes mission in human history. Like, you are handpicked by the ultimate authority, armed with literal earth-shattering power, and sent out to liberate millions of people from brutal oppression.
Right, a true epic hero setup.
Exactly. You step out the door feeling completely untouchable, backed by the creator of the universe, and then on your very first night traveling to your destination, the entity that just gave you this unimaginable power tracks you down to an isolated, dark motel room just to kill you.
Yeah, it completely shatters your expectations of a hero's journey. I mean, it defies every logical assumption we make about how power or, divine calling is supposed to work.
It's wild. And that terrifying paradox is the subject of today's deep dive. So, welcome. We are thrilled to have you with us today. We're acting as your guides through a highly theological, incredibly dramatic narrative drawn from a YouTube video transcript by a channel called Bible Inspirational Stories.
But before we go any further, we really need to clarify our mission right out of the gate. We are looking at a religious text, but we are absolutely not here to take sides or endorse these viewpoints as, universal objective truth or preach at you.
Right, definitely not preaching.
No, not at all. Our goal is strictly to examine the architecture of the ideas presented in this source material. We want to unpack the massive theological claims, the ancient cultural context, and the really fascinating narrative structures at play here.
Yeah, we are here to look under the hood of the text. And the central mystery we are looking at centers on Moses. So, according to the source, Moses is drafted by God. He's given immense miraculous abilities. I mean, we're talking the power to turn rivers into blood and bring down empires.
Which is just an unbelievable amount of power to hand to one guy.
Seriously. And he is sent on this grand, epic mission to free the Israelites from Egyptian slavery. But on his way to Egypt, while stopping for the night at this desolate inn, God suddenly shows up as an executioner.
And to really grasp the gravity of this, you have to understand the mood the source material establishes. Because this wasn't an ambush by Egyptian mercenaries, right?
Right.
It wasn't a sudden, mysterious ancient illness. The text is unflinchingly explicit. This is the terrifying, direct, intentional judgment of the Almighty against his own chosen Savior.
Wow.
Yeah. We're going to explore why a life-giving creator suddenly adopts the role of an assassin, and what this terrifying night reveals about the text's overarching concepts of extreme holiness, obedience, and ancient covenants.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the scene the source paints is almost claustrophobic in its terror. Moses has just left his father-in-law, Jethro. He is traveling with his family. He has this newly minted miraculous staff in his hand, the very staff that the text notes will eventually part the Red Sea.
The ultimate symbol of authority.
Right. He has ultimate cosmic backing. And then inside this dark, isolated inn, he is suddenly reduced to complete paralyzing helplessness. I mean, he is dying. He can't speak. He can't pray. He can't lift a single finger to wield any of the immense power he was just granted.
The narrative deliberately places ultimate divine power right next to ultimate human weakness. It's striking. And the source is forcing the reader to confront a side of its theology that makes, honestly, modern audiences deeply uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure. It's a tough pill to swallow.
Because today, the divine is often viewed almost exclusively through a lens of unconditional love, endless patience, soft forgiveness. But this text, however, presents God's holiness as something radically different. It is an intensely dangerous, consuming force.
It actually reminds me of handling a high-voltage electrical wire.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Like, if God's power is the electricity, Moses is the wire. If that wire isn't perfectly grounded and completely insulated, meaning, in this context, entirely purified according to the ancient rules, running that much raw power through it won't just result in a system failure. It will literally incinerate the wire.
Exactly.
So God stopping him in that inn wasn't a random assassination attempt. It was blowing a fuse before the whole system caught fire and destroyed the very instrument he was trying to use.
That high voltage analogy captures the ancient Near Eastern understanding of holiness perfectly. In the ancient world, holiness wasn't just about moral goodness, it was a physical, almost radioactive reality.
Radioactive, yeah. That makes sense.
And the source argues that no matter how great a person becomes, no matter how vital they are to a grand divine blueprint, they are never immune to the physics of that holiness. The greater your proximity to this power and the higher your calling, well, the stricter the demand for absolute purity.
Because Moses is on his way to represent God's ultimate justice to the Pharaoh of Egypt.
Yes.
So the source is laying down a non-negotiable rule. You just cannot weaponize divine justice if you are harboring impurity yourself.
Which forces us to examine the specific impurity that triggered this whole terrifying event.
Yeah.
The violation, according to the source, goes back to the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis chapter 17. Moses failed to circumcise his infant son.
Okay.
Yeah. In this textual tradition, circumcision wasn't just a cultural norm or a minor medical procedure. It was the ultimate physical symbol of devotion and belonging to God. The contractual rule was absolute. Anyone who breaks this covenant is to be completely cut off from his people.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. But wait, hold on. I need to stop you there.
Sure.
As a modern reader, my immediate reaction is massive skepticism and, frankly, pushback. I mean, millions of Israelites are suffering in brutal generational slavery. Moses is on his way to launch a massive liberation movement to challenge the greatest superpower of the ancient world.
The stakes couldn't be higher.
Right. And God is halting the entire exodus over a domestic dispute about a family ritual. It sounds incredibly petty. It sounds like severe micromanagement of the highest order.
Viewed purely as an arbitrary rule through a modern lens, it absolutely seems like micromanagement. I totally get that reaction.
It's hard not to see it that way.
But the source synthesizes this by digging into the cultural and psychological why behind Moses' failure. Moses didn't just forget to do it, like it slipped his mind. The text suggests that Moses actively compromised the law to appease his Midianite wife, Zipporah.
Okay. Let's think about Zipporah's context for a second. She is a Midianite woman. She wouldn't have been accustomed to this specific, highly intimate Israelite blood ritual.
Not at all. It wasn't her culture.
It makes perfect sense that she would find it foreign, perhaps even barbaric, and heavily oppose it.
She opposed it, and Moses folded. He prioritized domestic peace and family harmony over the foundational divine law he was supposed to champion, and he likely rationalized the compromise.
How, sir?
Well, he might have thought, I am taking on this massive world-altering job for God. I am going to free an entire nation of slaves. God will surely overlook this one little concession I made at home to keep my wife happy.
Oh, man. It's the classic trap of believing monumental professional success somehow excuses your foundational private failures.
Yes.
It's the CEO thinking the board won't care about embezzlement because he just closed a billion-dollar merger.
And that hypocrisy is exactly what would have destroyed his mission in Egypt before it even started. Think about the sheer absurdity of the situation Moses was walking into. He's going to march into Pharaoh's throne room, representing the ultimate authority of the universe, and demand, "Obey the laws of my God. Let my people go."
Oh, I see where this is going. Pharaoh's intelligence network would have known all about Moses.
Absolutely.
They would have known his own household was in active defiance of that very God.
Exactly. Pharaoh and the entire Egyptian court would have laughed him out of the room. They would have said, "Why should we fear or obey a God whose own messenger doesn't even follow his most basic rules?"
They'd have totally dismissed him.
Right. In the ancient Near East, honor and authority were everything. You cannot be the avatar of absolute obedience to a divine king while harboring open rebellion in your own tent.
The private failure completely undermines the public authority. It invalidates the entire message. Which brings us to a major takeaway from the source. Half obedience is complete disobedience.
Yes, that's a crucial point.
And because of that hidden flaw, Moses finds himself paralyzed by divine judgment in that suffocating end. He is literally dying. All his knowledge, all his past experiences at the burning bush, all his leadership skills, they are utterly useless.
He's stripped of everything.
He is completely incapable of fixing the brooch he created. So the narrative has to shift to a desperate, real-time solution from the only person left standing.
Zipporah, The wife who originally opposed the covenant is now the only one who can fulfill it.
Yeah, Zipporah steps up. And what stands out in the text description of this moment is the brutal, unfiltered action. She realizes she can't debate God. She can't write a heartfelt apology. She can't promise Moses will be better tomorrow.
The time for talk is over.
Exactly. God's wrath has breached the room, and it demands the fulfillment of the contract. So she grabs a sharp flintstone, performs the circumcision on her son herself, and then takes the blood and physically touches it to Moses' feet.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of that salvation. To understand why this actually works, we have to dive into the logic of ancient contracts, known as covenants.
Okay, let's get into that.
In the ancient Near East, covenants were not simply signed with ink on a piece of paper. They were binding agreements of life and death, and they were sealed with blood. To break a covenant meant legally forfeiting your life.
Wow. So when Moses broke the covenant by failing to circumcise his son, the legal penalty was his life.
Yes.
It's like a high-stakes, supernatural hostage negotiation where the only acceptable currency isn't money or apologies, but absolute painful obedience in this specific symbolic act. The debt was activated, and God, acting as the ultimate judge, came to collect.
And the only legal mechanism to satisfy a broken life contract in this ancient framework is substituting life for life, blood for blood. The source explicitly anchors this bizarre event in a much broader biblical rule.
Which is?
Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness, meaning there is no canceling of the contractual debt. Moses contributed absolutely nothing to his own rescue. He was a passive, dying recipient. He was saved solely because a substitute's blood was physically applied to him.
That's incredibly intense. And as Zipporah applies this blood, she speaks a highly enigmatic phrase. She says, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me."
The very famous, very mysterious line.
Yeah, and it's a stunning acknowledgement of the terrifying reality she just woke up to. Her own cultural stubbornness, combined with Moses' willingness to indulge it, almost cost her husband his life.
She saw the consequences firsthand.
She had to abandon her pride, violently submit to a ritual she hated, and use that blood to break the judgment.
And the text notes that instantly, the very moment the blood touches Moses, the execution order is called off. The wrath vanishes. The contractual debt is paid in the only currency the covenant recognizes, and Moses is saved.
Which is just a massive pivot in the story. Because Moses couldn't save himself, the text forces us to look deeply at the instrument of his salvation, the blood. And that specific mechanism isn't isolated to a random dusty inn.
No, not at all.
The source links it directly to a massive architectural pattern within the text. We zoom out, and suddenly this claustrophobic event becomes a microscopic blueprint for everything that follows.
Yeah, we are looking at a literary and theological concept called typology. The authors of these texts use repeated motifs to create a unified narrative structure. It's almost like hyperlinking across centuries of writing.
Hyperlinking, I like that.
And the source draws an unavoidable direct parallel between the blood at the inn and the upcoming nation-defining event of the Passover in Egypt.
Right, the Passover being the massive final plague that actually breaks Pharaoh's grip and allows the enslaved Israelites to walk free.
Exactly. During the Passover narrative, God sends a final judgment, often referred to as the angel of death, over the entire land of Egypt. The Israelites are saved from this judgment, but not because they are inherently better people than the Egyptians.
They didn't earn it.
Right. They aren't saved because they prayed harder or had superior moral character. They are saved entirely because they follow a specific instruction. They paint the blood of a substitute lamb on the wooden doorposts of their homes. When the judgment sees the applied blood, it passes over them.
So the blood on the feet at the inn was the prototype. It was the beta test for the blood on the doorposts in Egypt. It's the exact same mechanism of substitution and salvation.
It is profound theological foreshadowing. The source traces this unbroken line from the desolate inn through the massive scale of the Passover, all the way to its ultimate theological climax in the New Testament texts.
Which is Calvary, crucifixion.
Yes. Now, if you were listening to this right now and thinking, okay, that is a massive, dizzying leap to go from a weird domestic dispute in a dusty inn to the crucifixion of Jesus. You really have to look at how the source treats the overarching architecture of the Bible.
It's all connected, according to the text.
Exactly. It's arguing that these are not disconnected stories. They are a singular, unified mechanism.
The video asserts a comprehensive framework where all of humanity is sitting in the exact position of Moses in that inn.
That's the core argument, yeah.
Under this theological umbrella, humanity is inherently flawed, unable to uphold ultimate divine holiness, spiritually paralyzed, and deserving of judgment. We are completely incapable of saving ourselves through intellect, good deeds, or moral superiority.
And within this hyperlinked narrative framework, Jesus Christ is presented as the final, flawless Passover lamb.
So it all points to that one moment.
The text argues that just as the infant son's blood diverted the wrath from Moses, and the lamb's blood diverted the wrath from the Israelites in Egypt, the innocent blood of Jesus, shed on a wooden cross, is designed to divert God's ultimate justice from humanity. It is the shedding of substitute blood to pay the ultimate contractual debt, granting eternal life. When that blood is applied through faith, the text claims, the judgment of God permanently passes over the individual.
So what does this all mean? When you look at the entirety of this narrative, the source takes a story that initially looks bizarre, petty, and incredibly cruel. I mean, the Almighty attacking his own drafted messenger in the dark, and reframes it entirely as a profound act of grace.
It forces a complete redefinition of grace.
Yeah.
We usually equate grace with leniency, letting someone off the hook looking the other way.
Like getting a warning instead of a speeding ticket.
Right. But the source argues that God's terrifying justice in that room was his grace. If God had ignored the sin, Moses would have marched into Egypt spiritually compromised. His authority would have been hollow. He would have failed.
He would have been destroyed on a much larger stage.
Yes. By bringing Moses to the absolute brink of death, God forced a necessary, painful purification. It stripped away Moses' reliance on his own power and forced his family into complete alignment with the divine covenant. It was a severe mercy.
A severe mercy. I love that concept. It strips away the illusion of what it means to be prepared for something truly great. And bringing this right back to you, the listener. Regardless of your personal theology or background, the practical takeaway from this deep dive is immense.
It really is applicable to anyone.
It is. The source makes it painfully clear that if you are taking on a massive mission, whether you're leading a corporation, starting a family, or spearheading a social movement, enthusiasm is not enough. Charisma is not enough. Your private integrity matters more than anything.
You can't fake it.
No, you simply cannot carry a message of truth or demand high standards from those around you if your foundational actions contradict that message behind closed doors. The rot will eventually bring down the whole structure.
It is a call to profound, unflinching self-examination. And I want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder long after we wrap up today. We saw how the text suggests that God's harsh justice in that inn was actually his greatest act of protection, saving Moses from a catastrophic public failure later on.
Right.
Think about your own life and your own ambitions. What if the biggest, most terrifying obstacle halting your progress right now isn't some external enemy or bad luck?
That's a tough question.
It is. What if it is a foundational flaw, a private moral compromise you've quietly chosen to ignore, and life is actively forcing you to deal with it before you can move forward?
What if the terrifying thing keeping you pinned down in the parking lot is the exact thing you need to fix before you can safely take the keys to the kingdom? It is a massive thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.